to the show. We're here. I'm trying to be a little bit more sophisticated because of the guest that we have with us today. He's well, I mean, we'll just go ahead and we'll get into it. We've got a show with the much esteemed, very rich, multi-millionaire, Skyrise Excellence himself, Mr. Justin Ruiss. He's with us here today. How are you doing, sir?
I'm just really upset that I'm not categorized as a billionaire.
Oh, yeah, no, you're not Bezos yet.
No.
You're not Bezos rich. Is he still the richest man in the world? I think it's Elon Musk.
I think
right?
Musk might be. Actually, let's look it up. Richest person in the world, because you never know. Could be a lady. It's Musk. It's Musk by like a country mile. The next, he's 230. He's 230 billion. The Bernard Arnault family is 184, and Bezos is 162. What a loser!
Damn. Yeah, I know, right? Golly, pick it up, Bezos. No more. Oh well, the did you ever watch the Inside the Bo Burnham special?
No.
Oh, okay. He's got a song about Bezos and how Bezos is basically the richest man in the world, and yeah, it's a good song. It's interesting, funny, but should update that to be Elon Musk. Cool.
Musk.
Yeah. So the reason that I've got you here, and the kind of topic that we're going to discuss today
is to kill me.
Yes. And take all of your money.
Yes.
Yeah. No. We're going to. I wanted to talk about something that is. I think on everyone's collective minds right now. It was, if I'm not mistaken, Monday. The Game Awards announced their batch of nominees. I don't want to necessarily pick your brain on who you think wins every category, but I wanted to talk to you a bit about just the Game Awards as a general rule, but also I wanted to kind of get deep in on your kind of philosophical ideas about like what the Game Awards are and stuff like that. So
we're not setting Vegas odds here.
Yeah, no, we're not doing a prediction show. That's
well, it's been really fun. I do have to. I have way more pressing matters.
No. So that, with that said, I mean, let's talk a little bit about it. How do you feel about this year's batch of Game of the Award nominees?
Man, if you told me the year that I was going to have a kid, that was going to be also the year that I had to play every video game, and that there would be conflicting things, man, this was the year to play every video game.
Did you see this like kind of happening? Like, because I didn't. I knew that there were games coming out this year that I was interested in, but I didn't see this. You know what I mean?
There were, well, maybe because of, no, I didn't. You're right. I didn't. Absolutely not. But there were games that I was excited for, which I didn't think would be like the, let's say, like sucking all the oxygen out of the room. Like, I didn't see Super Mario Wonder coming out and being as amazing as it is. I didn't expect I didn't even remember. Totally forgot that RPG was coming out. But stuff like Spider-Man and Tears of the Kingdom, those things obviously have their fan bases and stuff, and I totally understand why people would go wild for those. But like Baldur's Gate 3, I always remember seeing the news on it and like, oh, that's interesting, that's cool. And then eventually it was just like, hey, if you're not playing Baldur's Gate 3, you don't know what video games are.
Right.
So, I got sidelined on that one. But there were a lot of really good games. I didn't expect Lies of P to be as prolific as possible. I didn't even
Yeah,
expect
that-
a lot of the indies to be as like so dynamic. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's really been a strange year. Like, I mean, many of the. So, well, this is more of a philosophical question, but do you consider like Baldur's Gate 3 like an indie? Because technically they are an independent studio. They self-finance the game. They self-publish the game. Like, would you consider them independent?
Is this like the whole like triple A versus triple I kind of thing? You know, like
Yeah. I mean, yeah, kind of.
but
right?
like in every like when you there's a little bit of like walks like a duck, quacks like a duck kind of thing. If you think about it, in a lot of ways, it is an independent game. Maybe it doesn't have the same type of budget that something like Dave the Diver has, but it quote unquote checks all of those boxes. It's the same thing as like Remedy. Remedy is like an independent studio. They're not owned by anybody, right? So it's like they're technically independent, but those games cost a lot of money. Same thing with Baldur's Gate.
For real.
So
For real.
I mean, look, the fact of the matter is Baldur's Gate and Alan Wake should be in contention for the best game of this year. You know, versus some of these like smaller. I guess when you really think about like independent, like less than 30 people working on the game. I guess it's hard. Like, if that's the case, then there shouldn't be a best independent game category. These should all be voted on as the best games of the year.
Yeah, I agree with that. I understand exactly what you're saying. Like if there is no like if you're considering like Baldur's or like Larian or Remedy like like an independent studio, then what's the difference between them and like two people working in their grandma's basement?
Right,
I
or
understand
like
what you're saying, yeah.
Sabotage. Like Sabotage isn't like the biggest studio in the world, but they made Sea of Stars. So, what's the difference? Like Remedy is, I'm sure, hundreds of people, right? Like
Yeah.
so it's
Oh, yeah.
it's totally different. It's a little bit of that like like an animated movie will never win Best Picture, even though sometimes there are animated movies that should be in contention for Best Picture because they're just so damn good. I'm sure that's very few and far between when that's actually happened, but like they have their own category for that, for animated, just for that, to highlight that. But in this case, independent doesn't seem like it's enough of that differentiating category to highlight truly what independent means. Because then Baldur's Gate or Alan Wake 2 should win both categories, right? Like,
Right. Yeah, I feel you on that. For
award
sure.
shows.
Well, yeah. So, I mean, before we, I guess, get into that, how do you feel about this year's batch of nominations? Are we? I don't know. This has been an incredible year for games, but I mean, there were some noticeable absences. Like, I don't think that Hogwarts Legacy got anything. I haven't played it because reasons, but like. As a general rule, do you think that the nominations this year were pretty good?
Given like what came out, I mean, man, I think it's hard to narrow it down to even 6. I think
I mean that's fair.
I think the list should have been bigger, but I don't know. Well, like Hogwarts Legacy, it's funny enough. I think Dylan did a really good job of kind of surmising that, where it was like incredibly high, like starting on a high note and then just not delivering, like just and I think that speaks volumes of why this game isn't there, barring like controversy stuff too, but like seems like they just maybe never followed through. I don't know, it's tough. Like there's clearly one game on this game of the year list that one of these things is not like the other. But I think it's a fair list. I think it's indicative of. I think there's one that probably belongs on here that's not, and I know which one I would swap in place of that.
Okay, which one?
So the thing I think that's missing is Starfield. I think
really?
Starfield I think that game captured a lot of people's minds. I think it captured their time and really gave and delivered on like the Bethesda promise. I think a lot of people were really impressed with Starfield. And I think you can see the numbers too. Like it's in the numbers, right? Even outside of just like the artistic and creativity of the game. Which I think that's I think that's a little bit of a jab. And I think some of while it sounds a lot of time, I'm being as political as possible, but while it sounds like, the whole fast travel thing, or, you're customizing the ship, but you can't fly it in space, like, those are a little, like, I get both sides of the argument, but if that's what's preventing that game from being on this list, that's a silly type of complaint. I think the thing it replaces is Resident Evil 4.
Yeah, I agree. Like, I really liked Resident Evil 4. I think, if I'm not mistaken, it's sitting in my top 10 currently. But I don't think that game is nearly on the level of the other games on that list.
It's RE4 is so influential, like, when it came out. Mm-hmm. I just don't know if that in the year of our Lord 2023, a remake of this game is as influential as when it first came out, because I just don't see, it's replicating a formula from the other Resident Evil games, which were, bar none, fantastic, like RE2, and everybody was really high on RE3 remake, but is this with two horror games, quote unquote horror games, with two horror games in contention for Game of the Year, one is absolutely terrifying, and one's a little more of an action adventure kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I was actually thinking, because I was looking over the nominations right now, and the best action adventure category is Alan Wake 2, Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, Marvel Spider-Man 2, Resident Evil 4, and Star Wars Jedi Survivor. So, like, 4 of the 5 games that are in that category are 4 of the games that were made the final 6 in Game of the Year. This is kind of nuts.
It's I don't know, it's very strange. Like, best action game, even if you look at best action game, and I get the idea, right? It's like, these are games that most likely don't require, like, the management of an inventory system, or I guess, I don't know, but like Hi-Fi Rush, Remnant 2, Ghost Runner, Dead Island 2, and Armored Core 6. A smattering of games that I think deserve to be highlighted this year, because they're a lot of, like, there's 2 or 3 of these games on this list that are very good. So it makes a lot of sense for them to be highlighted. But to your point, like, you look at the action adventure titles, whatever doesn't win Game of the, or whatever wins action adventure is not going to win Game of the Year, I think.
Yeah, I agree.
And if you wanted, like, fair enough, if you wanted to highlight best action adventure and put RE4 in this category, I think that's totally fine. I don't think it hangs with the rest of the best of the year.
Yeah, I agree with that. I agree with that 100%.
I don't even know if I would put Jedi Survivor up here. I mean, it was good, but it wasn't like, I don't know, it was very much like more of the, like, spoiler alert, they give you a blaster, and talking, even anecdotally, talking to some people, it's like, that blaster, like, that stance wasn't, it wasn't groundbreaking.
Yeah. So let me ask you this: are we in agreement? Do you think that Larian sweeps everything? Do you think that this is their year? Like, or not their year, but do you think that this is like theirs to lose?
Oh boy. Strange, because I'm rooting for Larian because I think they have a lot going for them, and I think there's a lot to be said for Baldur's Gate 3 and the surrounding circumstances of how this game came about. I think they did a lot of things right. You know, to be fair, I didn't play Baldur's Gate 3, but hearing all the rhetoric from friends and people out there, this delivered. It really, really delivered. But knowing and playing, 4 of the 6 that are listed for Game of the Year, it's tough. I mean, Tears of the Kingdom, very much a top contender. I think Tears of the Kingdom is great. In no way is it perfect, because I think it does reiterate a lot of what Breath of the Wild is. They just expanded it in ways that I think are innovative. I think Super Mario Brothers Wonder is an amazing experience. That game was so much fun. Same thing with Spider-Man. Like I think they iterated on Spider-Man in a way that they gave us a situation where there's less is more. They took gadgets away that were superfluous. I think they simplified some things to make it more accessible. Like, we don't need 24 different abilities. They kind of narrowed it down to here's your Venom powers, and then here's your gadget powers. Mix and match whatever you want. I thought that was smart. It took less. It put more focus on playing the game than inventory management.
Yeah.
But there's 100%. one on this. There's one on this list that I look at, and if it comes down to 2, I know which one I'm voting. I know what direction I'm voting in. But man, Alan Wake 2.
Yeah.
Holy shit. Holy shit.
What a fucking game, man.
And I didn't think it was going to come down to... I think this would have been decided a long time ago, but... I mean, this game had to come out in November and, throw a monkey wrench into everything.
Yeah. Yeah. It's something else, man. It's something else.
It's just so fucking good. It's so good. Even the, you end a chapter... And they roll, it's almost like they roll a song with no credits. And you even just want to listen to that song. It's so good. Oh, yeah. Man.
Did you play the first Alan Wake at all?
For a hot second. I really just kind of only, watched some stuff from it and maybe picked it up for, a couple of seconds. I really have to go back to it. I jumped in head first into Control.
Okay.
So coming off Control, this is very it's very different. You do not feel like at the end of Control you feel like a god, but this is very different. But also I think there's a lot of stuff that really works for this game, Control wise, that puts it in contention for the game of the year. But to your point, to your earlier question, does Larian sweep it? I think it comes down to one of these situations. This reminds me very much of Mad Max Fury Road. Mad Max Fury Road won every other award besides Best Picture.
Yeah.
And
it totally fucking should have.
And guess what? I would have traded every other award for that movie to win Best Picture that year.
Yeah.
And I think that's what ends up happening with Baldur's Gate. I don't think it wins, but I think all of the stuff around it, this game should be applauded for its community and its communication to its community. Yeah. They were so on top of it. They never skipped a beat. They wanted feedback. They took it. They iterated on it. There's so much. This is the cursory stuff that I think makes Baldur's Gate a great game, and I think it's a case study in how you make a great game. I don't like it, saddled between Spider-Man, Zelda, and a New York City writer who like is constantly has headaches. I don't know. This is tough.
Yeah. I agree.
This isn't. You know what this year isn't. This isn't a It Takes Two wins kind of year.
Yeah, no, for sure.
This is not one of those years.
It's not going to come out of left field for sure. I agree with that.
No. Again, one of five of these, if it wins, one of five of these would be one of those like my jaw hits the floor. But if any of the other five wins, there's no surprise. Like if Tears of the Kingdom takes it, I totally understand. If Super Mario takes it, totally understand it. But if RE4 takes it, I think there's a little bit of like. I know it's not the case because I think Keighley's better than that, but there's almost this kind of like, you see where the check was handed off.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's
well. That's actually, I mean, that's probably a good place to go, right? Because I wanted to ask you about the Game Awards as a sort of I don't know, like a new equivalent of E3. Do you agree with that assessment? Has this kind of taken the place of what E3 was doing for so many years?
There's a yes and no answer there. So yes, to showcase and premiere all of the coolest, newest thing. And look, like, if you think about it from Keighley's perspective, like, bravo to this guy. Like, he is Mr. Video Games at this point. But, like, he found a way to exploit the vacuum that E3 was with Summer Games Fest. And before that, he found a way to fill the void where, like, Spike TV was trying to be, like, the de facto video game channel. He found ways to do it in, like, non-threatening and more genuine way. Like, he found to be genuine about it, even though you kind of, again, you do kind of see, like, somebody described it to me once before as, like, you see where the money is being exchanged, right? Like,
yeah,
he puts on this platform and he basically tells his sponsors, like, we'll give you top billing and showcase for your newest game if you run the trailer during the Game Awards. That doesn't mean there's any kind of, like, you know, like that's a competitive game and they're like, we really want Evil Geniuses to win the esports award this year. I'm sure Keighley would be like, nobody's watching for that reason anyway, but sure. But, like, I don't even think he does that, right? Like, that's not impacting any of the decision making. But I do think you see, like, hey, Sony or Microsoft or Take-Two or Rockstar, you know, whoever it is looking at it and saying, this is a really good, you know, like, there are a lot of people watching this thing. So if from a marketing perspective you can get eyeballs on it, like, sure, we'll run a trailer for this, you know, free-to-play mobile game in the opening of this here Game Awards. But then, you know, obviously when you get through to it, like, you see a lot of the other games that get announced, it's like, holy shit, there's some real contenders that get announced.
Like Alan Wake 2 premiered at the Game Awards in, what, 2021? 2020?
Yeah.
Something like that. So, and then they had the big showcase last year. But you said some things that, like, I had these questions already determined that I wanted to ask you, and you kind of touched on them a little bit, so I want to maybe expound upon those. And we were just talking about, excuse me, how publishers, you know, okay, yeah, we'll do this for this game or whatever. Like, we'll advertise our game here at that point. So my first question is, how do you think that the Game Awards factors into studios' advertising budgets? Do you think that they kind of make a dedicated part to say, hey, we want this at the Game Awards.
I think
which,
so did you have more to that question?
well, I was maybe as a supplementary, adding into the second question. Do you think that like the Game Awards actually adds any kind of material benefit to the publishers and studios? Because I would think that if their advertising budgets are saying like, we want to dedicate this money to the Game Awards, that's because the Game Awards advertisement there provides some sort of material benefit. Like they kind of like, the question I guess goes into one another.
I think the big thing that we have to look at is like the number, and nobody really cares about it like at the time because it's always like ooh, wow, interesting, but I think the marketing teams look at it and say like these are the things that we want to hear. But when you hear of there's 50,000 people watching on YouTube and there's hundreds of thousands watching on Twitch, like it's dedicated eyes that are on this event at this time. Like you're getting the awareness, you're getting the impressions. So
yes,
I think when marketers are going to Keighley, I think these are the numbers that he's coming to them with and saying like, impression wise, you're gonna crush it. This is where you want to announce. And I think
I was looking at it just now. Last year's broadcast, the viewership says 103 million. So,
that's like across YouTube, Twitch. I don't know if they broadcast it. To be quite honest,
I don't think so.
I think it's only
think
digital.
Used to, yeah.
But still, regardless, these are with the absence of E3. This is one of the best ways that you can get people excited about games. I think. Look, I mean, the fact of the matter is, the Oscars are hosted in February after all of this stuff. The Game Awards are hosted in early December, right before the end of holiday shopping season. But like, I think a lot of this ends up being like reaffirming and reiterating that games are out, which helps. And I think it builds so much buzz and awareness for upcoming entries. Like nobody would have been as excited, or I don't know if that's the case. I think there are certain instances where things can get announced and they hold enough weight that people will be like, "Oh man, this is coming out." Whether it's like Nintendo doing a direct that focuses squarely on Zelda, or like let's say they're doing like an Odyssey 2 or something. Like if they were to do that, I think there's a lot of really goodwill that they can still build up with the Nintendo fan base. But like if you think about something like Hades 2, especially something like Hades 2, that's the audience that they cater to. If what is it, Super Giant or Super Massive, one of the two. If they
Super Giants,
if they were to do something on their own, like in the middle of July or something like that, I think a lot of people would still watch. I think they would get good viewership. But are they getting the people that are interested in seeing like, how well, if Call of Duty gets, a big game of the year nod, or something like that? They're not capturing all of those people in one moment. And I think the hustle and bustle around like, even like world premiere, like all that stuff, like just heightens the situation. I mean, and hearing, I know this is like so perfunctory, but like hearing like the audience go apeshit over something like Hades 2, and it's like that's the kind of stuff you want to hear. You want to hear people go crazy over this stuff. I think it factors in, and I think there are times. Look, traditional advertising is changing in a lot of ways, right? These marketers are looking for ways to advertise, whether it's connected television, whether it's banner ads, whether it's pre, mid, or post roll on a YouTube video. Like, they're trying to get it's a fierce business, so they're trying to get as many eyes on these upcoming titles as possible. And if you have the budget, you have a lot of money, you can roll a lot of those ads in a lot of different places and be effective. But if you're Hades, if you're Supergiant, this is your Super Bowl.
You get your one chance to kind of like, hey, this game is coming out and it looks awesome.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah, I feel that.
There's no other way. And I think Keighley's really smart for putting all of this together again in the most you can call it genuine. I'm sure there are a lot of other people who are like, there's a lot of this that just feels a little forced. Like, I don't know. I don't even know if there are parts of it that feel forced. Like, I like the fact that they get like a full-on orchestra to do like the music behind the nominees for best game. Like, they put class to it. They make me feel like, it makes me feel like what I'm watching validates my like very my parents saying like, this is a disturbing hobby that you have.
Yeah.
Versus like me sitting there saying like, no, you just don't know, you don't understand what art is. And then they're like, you don't understand what art is. And I'm like, fair enough,
Yeah. So, do you think, I mean, besides the obvious you mentioned was Christmas, right? Like, obviously it takes place in early December, so there's that window where, having these games on display for like awards and stuff obviously provides a material benefit for them. But like with the games that are shown as sort of like the advertisement thing, that hey, this is coming out next year, what do you think the material benefit is there for games to advertise during the Game Awards?
I think it's minimal.
Is it as big as like E3?
Yeah, I think it's well, I don't think it's as like, if you win something, I think that's one of those like if Baldur's Gate wins and there are people who haven't picked it up yet, I think that's one of those like, this one game of the year, huh? It must be good. Like, I think that's and it bleeds over into something like January, like yeah. Oh, this game won, so like maybe it's worth picking up and putting into my backlog. I think I think if this show was hosted in January and it was a look forward for the remainder of the year or like the next upcoming 1 to 2 years, I don't think it really matters that much in terms of building hype, because I think it's still executing on what it needs to. I think from a early December perspective, it's one of those like, this can help, like slapping that like, hey, we won Game of the Year on a banner ad, I think does say something, like even like Oscar movies, right? I relate it back to that, but like, or like the Grammys too. It's like, whoa, this like that album was that good. Like, I guess I should probably check it out. Like,
yeah, I for sure think that there's a prestige element to it. Like if something wins any award really at the whether it be like one of the lower level ones or something like that, I think there is like a bit of prestige that adds to like the sort of like sales equivalent of that.
Yeah. Maybe it's a minor lift. Who knows? Like, look, I don't think Tears of the Kingdom is getting any more like copies sold. Like, I think, people who own a Switch that know what Zelda is are playing that game. But
yeah,
again, for like a Baldur's Gate or even like an Alan Wake, I think it's one of those situations where it's like, if that game, like, there are people that probably sit there and say like, I play Spider-Man and I play Call of Duty and that's it. Like, if they saw Alan Wake and it wins and they're like, maybe this is good. Maybe this is like Last of Us with a guy with a beard. Like that's like, yeah. Actually, they both have beards. So now
they do both have beards.
All right, so then my whole thing doesn't make any sense. I guess maybe then
Well,
they'd be like, it's a woman. Like,
so I want to return to something you had maybe touched on a little bit earlier, and this ties back into like just how the Game Awards kind of came to be and what they kind of are in their current incarnation. Do you think that there's any sort of like validity to the arguments that like the awards are bought and paid for?
I think um, I think the slots at where certain games are announced are definitely bought and paid for.
Yeah,
I think
sure.
I think that is like, if you're rolling the world premiere before Game of the Year, like, I want to know what Keighley charges for that time slot, like,
Yeah,
or whatever, like whatever the economics of that, like that inventory, that ad inventory is. I don't know. I don't think there's like, I don't think there's somebody at Sony who's going like holding a knife to Keighley's throat and is like, this is the year that Spider-Man gets it, right? Like, I don't think that's the I don't think that's the situation.
yeah.
Because I think there were like, well, let's face it, It Takes Two won. So,
Yeah, right. Yeah. The only reason I even bring it up is because there is this argument, and I've seen it recently, but like there's a disconnect between what critics think is good and what audiences think are good, and I can't remember what it was, but something came out recently that the audience score was like really high and the critic score was really low, and I was thinking to myself like, when we get to the Game of the Year, like, obviously everyone loves Tears of the Kingdom, right? And everyone seems to love Baldur's Gate, like critics and audiences alike. But like, let's say like something a little bit more maybe divisive were to be up there, and like, say, just for instance, let's just say that Modern Warfare 3 had gotten a Game of the Year nod. We as people who kind of like watch the industry and stuff like that, we know that it's not going to win. It doesn't have a snowball's chance in hell of winning. But like, to the general audiences, that's the best game of the year because that's the only game that they play, and whatever. So I just wanted to know, like, there's an argument that people make where if they don't like the outcome of stuff, obviously there was like chicanery going on,
And I think that's the definitive evidence that I think, or maybe there's many reasons, but if I had to point to one, I think that's the one that kind of sits there and says there's objectivity in this. And yeah. I think the other thing too that helps this whole thing is there's portions of it that are, like, look, you and I can vote, and apparently that goes into a voting bank that it constitutes, like a weight in what gets determined as Game of the Year. Obviously they go to the publications and they ask the publications what they think, and then those people have their own roundtable discussions as what they would vote for. But they're like that. But what I'm exactly explaining is, like, there's way more transparency, I think, in how they in how they determine a lot of this stuff. Whereas, like, you could probably explain a lot of like the movie one to me, and I probably would sit there and say like, is that really how it works? like,
yeah.
Or is there like a cabal of people who just like sit there and they're like the most lame and boring one wins? Like, like, I don't know, like, or, it's like DiCaprio shouldn't win. Like, why? It's like, because he died at the end of Titanic. Like, I don't know what it is, but I also don't even know what would be nominated this year for Best Picture because I didn't really see that much.
Yeah, this
Super
year's
Mario
been a
should have.
kind of weird year for movies. There hasn't been anything, with the exception of like Oppenheimer and Barbie. For me, there hasn't been anything that's been like immediately like, oh, this is a Best Picture type nominee.
Super Mario?
So, do what now?
Did you see Super Mario?
Yeah.
It's
good.
I like the Rainbow Road moment, like when that music kicked in, I was like basically crying in the movie theater. It was amazing.
Oh my god.
I was like, this is exactly
hilarious.
this is like what 9-year-old me wanted, but got, Dennis Hopper as Bowser, and who else was in that movie?
John Leguizamo.
Yeah, John
and,
Leguizamo.
what's his name? Bob
Hoskins.
Bob Hoskins. Yeah.
John Leguizamo should have had a part in this movie. That would have been good.
That would have been fun.
But yeah, anyway.
So,
I think
anyway.
the transparency aspect of it is, I think helps. But I think on the like, who's got the biggest budget to say like we're putting our game as a world premiere here, I think there's totally some like, I wouldn't call it chicanery, but I think Keighley sits there and basically like picks up one phone and says like I got Capcom on the line and they're telling me that they're willing to pay 10% more, and then like he hangs up, and then he calls up like Take-Two, and he's like, Capcom said they're willing to do 15% more. Like it's like I bet that's happening, and that would be really funny if like Keighley is doing that, but like literally doing that, like has like 2 phones in his hands. But I think that's, again, like somebody told me, it's like you can see where the checks like exchanged hands, because there's clearly like, check out this world premiere and it's amazing, and it's also brought to you by my good friend Hideo Kojima, who still doesn't speak English, but yet he's one of my best friends. Like,
Yeah. I think it's hilarious that Kojima has a podcast where he speaks exclusively in Japanese, but he like, it's with like all these people who like are speaking English. I don't know, it's very funny to me.
you need to see his TikToks. Oh my god.
Does he do TikToks?
Oh, they're
Is that a thing?
amazing. Some of them are crazy. I think they're like Kojima Studios, but like when he's involved in them, it's
Yeah.
like, oh man, you can tell that guy just wants to have fun. But like,
Yeah.
just sometimes it's just like, dude, you got the bad guy from Casino Royale and the dude from The Walking Dead, and it's like the 3 of you have nothing in common.
Right? Like nothing at all. That's hilarious. Okay, so I guess to get us back on track with the Game Awards, do you think that there is any way? Because this is going to be a question that is coming from someone who, I guess, has a sort of biased opinion on the Game Awards. So take what I'm asking, I guess, with sort of a grain of salt.
The answer is Star Rail, and it should win everything. Yeah.
Okay. So the Game Awards I kind of see as something akin to the like MTV Movie Awards. I don't take it nearly as seriously as I take something like the DICE Awards, right? Like, because the DICE Awards to me are like the Oscars, like where it is something where people within the industry are voting on the games that came out.
I'm
like
leaving.
they are the ones who know how games are made.
I'm leaving at this point. How dare you?
Okay. I know, right? But they have some sort of know-how. You know what I mean? Whereas, like, I feel like not to like shit on these people, but like critics don't fucking make games. They don't know how long it takes. They don't understand all of the intricacies of this stuff. They play the games. They can tell you how a game feels and how they felt based on those feelings that the game presents them, but they're not game devs. So I hold their weight on things a little bit less. Okay. that said, all the context out of the way, do you think that there's a way that they could legitimize the Game Awards to where it has that sort of like Oscar-like status?
That's a good question. I don't know. That's a really good question. Because then you look at stuff like BAFTA, or like you brought up DICE, like you look at a lot of those awards, and those are really technical and very, very. Those are people with a lot of expertise who can split the hairs on a lot of this stuff, and probably be the most objective people in the room to talk about this stuff.
Yeah.
But that's like, there's a little bit of like, what's more important than like the SAG Awards or the Oscars, or like, like the like what's the most important? Because the Oscars definitely, I think the Oscars have a lot of merit to, depending on who you talk to, like they still have a lot of merit. They still hold a lot of weight. Been doing them for, like a bajillion years. But like, I don't know. It's tough. Like, then if that's the case, then you'd have to rip the advertising out of it, right? Because the Oscars don't run. Yeah. The Oscars don't run like trailers for like the next Marvel movies, right? Like
exactly.
Like they don't it's, or they don't even run trailers for like The English Patient 2. Like they don't do that. But I think it's tough. I think you'd have to remove that from the equation, and I think that ruins the whole. Like, it's weird because you need the world premieres to help put the show on, but you also need the show to help put the premieres on. So like, there's this weird like handshake agreement where it's like, we're gonna put on what we think is the most objective and appropriate conversation around the best of this art category ever for this year, but also we really want to tell you that there's another Star Wars game coming out. Like, right, there's a lot of that to it, and I think it's tough because like there's this weird blend of like it works, and I think nobody bats an eye at that. Nobody like sits there and like rolls their eyes at the like commercialism over this. I think there are people that are just genuinely happy to see that there be like a legitimate, quote unquote legitimate award show for this. But if you're really looking for like what's taking home the best, like maybe it's the BAFTAs, maybe it's DICE. I don't know. That's tough. But I don't know if there's a way to legitimize this thing without, destroying it.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Unless the only thing I can think of is unless there's like an independent, like, almost like museum driven or like nonprofit organization that would put this on and devote, like whatever sort of grant or funding towards it. But I don't think that exists. There's no like, there's no, video game foreign press to like, or who like I don't even know the ownership structure or something like that, but there's nobody to help fund this in a way that gives it its true objectivity, or maybe that's Metacritic.
Yeah, I agree.
Maybe Metacritic should put on the awards and just be like, these are the numbers. Okay, enjoy. Good night.
Yeah. Metacritic says that this is the best game of the year. Okay, bye.
Turns out it is Star Rail.
Turns out. Cool. All right. Well, I've only got one more question for you, and then we can wrap this up.
Is it best mobile game? Because I think I know what's going to win.
Yeah.
By the way, can I just say something? I looked at and I love that game. I love Star Rail. But let me tell you something.
You do, you little anime weirdo.
When did I turn into Austin? But I was, because I was getting really frustrated that I was not getting my brand new anime character to join my squad of 20 other basically identical anime characters. I was getting so frustrated with it, so I looked up the odd system of getting what I need, they with the audacity that they have, they tell you that it takes 90 rolls to ensure that you're going to get the pick of that month. 90.
Oh my god.
That's like, I didn't do the math, but I was looking at it and I was like, this is easily over $100 to make sure that I can get that character. And like,
I'm good.
Like, I don't really need like a 5th ice character, you know? But man, I was so angry at that. And then I finished the dailies. So.
Oh,
but you had one more question.
Okay, yeah, I had one more question. So, is there anything in particular that you think the Game Awards could change that would make it both more appealing for both audiences and for the advertisers there?
Probably more Al Pacino, you know, more Pacino.
Yeah, I think so too.
You know, the funny thing is, you see all of these, like, I don't know if it's just on social media or whatever it is, but you see these people who are so into gaming, and they're like these like quote unquote closet gamer. I can't believe Henry Cavill is such a closet gamer. Like,
yeah.
get those people to be more involved. Like Al Pacino, like, wow, they got Al Pacino. Like, you know, he barely, you know, you barely knew where he was. Like, he's like, where are my blood thinners? Like,
he's like 8,000 years old.
Yeah.
He has no clue.
I mean, there's so many times that you could, you know, ring the Cavill bell, so to speak, but like, find these people who would champion the space, and I think give them a little bit of the floor to make the intros, or like, you know, read off nominees and winners and stuff like that. That would be fun, because then at least it legitimizes things from like yeah, Cavill's a huge Warhammer guy. Like, yeah, he probably would be into this. Or you know, obviously, like, the thing that I could see this year is like Anya Taylor-Joy or Chris Pratt are going to announce something because of the Super Mario movie. But like, you know, that's something that I think could be a little bit more interesting. But again, like, does Chris Pratt play a lot of video games? I mean, I'll ask Tani that question because I know how much he loves Chris Pratt. But
yeah, he probably doesn't. He's too busy praying to Jesus and hunting lambs.
Yeah, or watching himself on Parks and Rec. You know?
Yeah. Oh, you mean when he was at his best?
I mean, it depends. I mean, I look. We haven't seen his best yet to come. I saw the Garfield trailer. I mean, like, who could do it better? You know, like, not even Bill Murray. Not even Bill Murray. But I don't like to improve upon it. I think improvement. Here's one thing, and call me crazy. There are
more Star Rail.
Probably potentially less Star Rail. 4 by what is this? 1, 3, 6, 8. There are 20-something categories. Cut them down. Like, the esports stuff. Okay, and they don't really.
I don't know about that. I don't think that stuff needs to. Be
here's why I say I think it's okay, because they do that thing where it's like here's the best esports one, and then like, and now here's the best content creator, and now here's the best athlete. You know, like, they kind of cut through them really quickly, and then I think is everything all right? Yeah, I'll be done in a little bit. I'm hosting a show. It's very cool. My wife thinks this is cool.
Yeah, she should.
She should, yeah. She has no idea how rich we are. But, like, okay, best RPG, best fighting, best family, best sim strategy, best sports racing, best multiplayer, best adaptation, most anticipated. Like, there's a lot on here that probably doesn't need. Here's one that I think is really stupid. Best independent game and best debut indie. What's the difference?
Yeah. Like, I agree with that. I don't think that there should be two different indie categories.
I think, like, look, best community support I think that's a really important category because I think it does like that's a differentiating factor of the games industry. I think you scrap best ongoing. I think you scrap. Oh, man, I don't know. Does anybody have VR or AR anymore? No.
No, they do not.
I think you can combine. You could probably combine action and action adventure. That gets that out of the way. I think best family and best multiplayer could probably be the same category too, even though, like, you know, best multiplayer has Diablo 4 in it, and best family game
and Call of Duty whenever it happens.
Yeah, actually, it's not even nominated. Call of Duty.
Wow, that's interesting.
But what I will say is best family and best multiplayer. Do they count Street Fighter as family? No. So Disney Island Illusion Island, Pikmin 4, that's all right. Sonic Superstars, Super Mario Party Animals. It's like, I don't know. You could probably combine a lot of that stuff. But yeah, like less is more. Like I think that works. I think best performance is good because I think there's enough for them to go on. I also do think, like, you can't... Cameron Monaghan and Idris Elba against, like, Yuri Lowenthal and Ben Starr. Like, there's clearly there might be some acting prowess that's a little bit different than some other acting prowess. Even though Yuri Lowenthal did a fantastic job as Peter Parker. I also think this Melanie Liburd shouldn't be nominated because of the way that she says Saga Anderson.
Well, that's her name, bro.
But she doesn't even pronounce it right. She's like, I'm Saga Anderson. Like, I'm just like, dude, the accent's coming out. And Anderson has an R. It's not Anderson. Like, it's just very... Though I do praise that game for having she's a badass lead.
Yeah.
Like Wake is kind of like stupid in a way. Like he's just like, I don't know what I'm writing anymore. I need to find manuscript pages. Like Alice said we kept coffee in the cabinets. I can't find it. Coffee's important. Like it's like I get the writing style and it fits in very well, but you kind of just like, man, this guy takes things too seriously, huh?
Yeah.
So we're gonna spend the next 5 hours talking about Alan Wake, right?
Yes, of course. That's our next spoiler cast episode.
Oh my god. I'm up to the wellness center.
Oh yeah. It's about to get real good.
You said something in Discord that made me. You better be right about what
have
you
you
said.
played any of Alan's stuff yet?
Yes, but also if you are saying that there's something as good, if not better, than the Ashtray Maze, you better stick to those words. Because
I think I'm telling you, I don't know if you've gotten to it yet or not.
That is one of the top 5 moments in video games in the last 10 years. The Ashtray Maze might be one of the best things. That's a moment in history.
Yep, I agree.
That and the end of all 26 endings of Nier.
Well, that was a fun convo. I'm gonna get you back to your wife and baby. So we'll end it there. But it was a good conversation. I enjoyed having you on.
It was alright.
Okay, good. Well, I won't have you on again, then, asshole.
We needed to clear the air because I think everybody thinks that we secretly hate each other. I don't think it's true.
I don't know.
We secretly...
I don't know why they would think that.
Absolutely hate each other. I mean, we're living proof that people just can't get along.
It's true. It's true.
So, what did you think of the Madam Web trailer?
Of the what trailer?
Madam Web. I mean, come on, you like movies, right?
Oh, dude. There's. Oh my God, I could go on and on about that. There's. I'll say this.
Here we go.
That movie looks like ass, but the line delivery of where she's talking about how the guy met her mother while she was studying spiders in the Amazon or whatever, I fucking died. I was laughing so hard. I thought it was one of the funniest things I'd ever heard in my entire life.
I guess you don't like science either, huh?
Don't like science.
Unbelievable. This is how these things start.
Only religion here.
Right. That's why you're such a big Morbius fan. Yeah, no, I get it.
Exactly. Oh, God. Well, yeah, we'll end it there. You know all the stuff. Everyone knows all the stuff. Go to culturebop.com or culturebop. Patreon.com/culturebop. YouTube, all that stuff.
Join our Discord.
Yeah, go find our Discord too. I'm pretty sure it's discoverable, but I don't know. I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to join Discords. I just create them.
You can join. Yeah, now we have to start a Telegram and a Signal, and we have to. Yeah.
Right. No, I'll figure it out so I can start putting in the show notes for real for people who are interested. That said, the maybe more important part is where can people find you? I know you've got a TikTok, but I don't think you've posted anything on there in a while.
That's an affirmative on that one. I'm way more available on LinkedIn under my actual name, not Skyrise Excellence. But I am way more active there, and you can find me there on LinkedIn. I post every Friday about the forums that we host and any particular key questions that have come up that are fun, and I like to tag some of our best and brightest in those forum posts. I actually had a really good conversation this week on Web3, and it was probably one of the more sobering conversations on Web3, where everybody was like, yeah, I don't know if this is going to work. And I think
It sounds like there were some smart people on that call.
there actually were some very smart people, and it's a lot to figure out.
Yeah, for sure. All right, sir. Well, this was fun. We'll do it again soon.
Bye.
Thank you. Yeah, until next time, everyone.